Hi, it's me, Tim. Today I wanted to talk about Arcanum 2, specifically the system mechanics extensions that I designed for it, because I was reading through them recently and I'm like, hey, these are pretty cool. I kind of wish that we had done this. Just want to point out before I begin, I do not own the rights to Arcanum. Those are owned by Activision Blizzard. So there's no need to ask if I'm working on an Arcanum 2 or can make an Arcanum 2. I can't. Ask Activision Blizzard if you have any questions. So I was going through my design folder from Troika, and I found one that was literally called Arcanum 2 System Extensions. Most of them were in skills, but there were also schematics and spells and backgrounds. Now, real quick, we were planning for Arcanum 2 to be the journey to the center of Arcanum. What's important about these system extensions, they were designed with the idea that you could keep playing the same character. Meaning, you all probably already had a character that was fairly high level. So most of my system extensions occurred at the top of the skill tree, the top of the spell tree, schematics, except for backgrounds, but I'll talk about that at the end. So my skill extensions were the most extensive. The first extension I did was I added something I called skill specialization. This was independent of the training, the beginner, expert, and master. In specializations, you could only get that once you achieved mastery. So once you had mastery, you could spend one character point and buy a specialization of a skill. Each skill had tons of specializations. I'm not going to go over all of them. I was reading through this. I had at least 4. A lot of them had 5 or 6 specializations per skill. I'll go over some to give you an example of what I did. Some of these specializations also had minimums of attributes or in sometimes other skills. So you couldn't always buy all of them. I'll give you an example. I do all of them, say, for bow. So there were 4 specializations for bow that you could buy once you hit a mastery level. There was double damage, which required a strength of 12, and suddenly every arrow you fire will do double damage. There was Seeker, which you could get if you had a dex of 20. You can now shoot arrows around a corner. So if you clicked on somebody and it only required the arrow to make one change in its straight line path, you could still hit them. There was one called Marksman, which also had a dex of 20, which would increase the critical hit chance for all of your called shots. Finally, there was one called Recover Arrows that required you to have at least spent 1 point and have a repair of 2 skill. And what it did is there was a chance that any arrow you shot would be in the creature's inventory if you killed them. So I thought those were pretty cool. Taunt had 5 new specializations, which included Dodge had 5 specializations, which included Taunt, which would make other nearby people try to attack you, or Evade, which would make attackers actually go off to your other, increase the chance that they would go on to your another target, which was interesting because those would work together, which meant if you were dodging someone, there was a good chance that either more people around them would try to attack you or they'd all go on to someone else. It was an interesting thing to do. Melee had 6 of them, which included everything from dual wield to doing knockbacks like the spell effect and stuns, but you would basically be able to get those automatically if you landed a blow. Throwing had a bunch of extra things, including similar to bows, doing double damage and being able to throw around corners. We had a lot of thieving specializations for backstabbing. So a ninja backstab meant the NPC target gets no chance to report the attack. So if you kill someone with your backstab, no one knows. Pickpocket had things that reduced penalties for taking someone's wielded weapon or wielded armor. So you could literally steal a sword out of someone's hand or steal the armor that they're wearing. Prowling had a bunch of stuff that once you were prowling, you could do things like do an instant short range move like a mini teleport while prowling. You could, one of them was called camouflage, which meant if you were prowling in a tile that had foliage, you were considered invisible when you were in there. So there was no chance of you being seen unless you did an attack or made a sound. There was one we called Human Fly that only worked with the engine. Sometimes we had facades in the game, and this would work with any facades. Were things that would look like the crashed blimp was a facade. It was a bunch of tiles that were made as one piece of art and then were laid down as one giant tile thing. What Human Fly let you do is you could click on any facade or wall segment and reappear at any tile that was connected to that facade or wall segment. So you could go up to one wall of a building and then instantly go anywhere along the perimeter of that building. Or you could go up to a facade like the crashed blimp and instantly appear anywhere around that blimp. I thought that was pretty cool. Spot traps had a bunch that basically let you, one of them let you pick up any trap that was, oh wait, that was another one. Spot traps let you go over a trap without setting it off. If you detected one trap, there was a chance all the traps in the area on screen would also light up. Gambling, haggling, healing, persuasion. Wow, all the tech skills got their own level 6 mastery specializations. The one that really caught my eye was the tech one, reverse engineering, which is if you had an intelligence of 20 and at least 1 degree in all the tech disciplines, you could learn a schematic by just finding an example of that item. So if you found an item in the game that you did not know the schematic for, just having that item, boom, you could reconstruct it. So those were really cool, and that added a lot of stuff because there were 5 to 6 for all 16 skills. That added like another 80 points to spend things on. The next way I extended the skills, I added a training level past Master called Grandmaster, and that let you do things that even the earlier training levels and all the specialization didn't do. For example, the Backstab Grandmaster turned all backstabs into critical successes. They didn't have a chance. They all were always a critical success. The Repair Grandmaster meant a repaired item never lost its maximum health. You were immune to that. The Firearms Grandmaster let you dual wield guns. So it was things like that were really cool. But the Grandmaster one not only took a character point and required master training, but it also cost money and you had to do the quest for the Grandmaster training. There was no way to avoid it. Now, because of this, that added 16 new points that you could spend on skills. Once I did that to skills, I did it to all the spells as well. So every college gained a level 6 spell called a lost spell from the Age of Legends. If you remember Arcanum's lore, magic waned and waxed, and we were in a period where it was waning. So there were spells above level 5 that had been lost. In Journey to the Center of Arcanum, you were going to find Age of Legends spells and get powerful enough to cast them. So some examples for that was the Conveyance College had an Evacuate spell that teleported you and the entire party, all your companions, to a distant and defined safe location. The Force spell got something called Full Spectrum Aura, which lets you do what Kurgan did, the boss at the end, which is surround himself with a shimmering field that made him totally invulnerable to attack. Of course, you can't attack either. It's basically a shell that nothing can go in and out of it. One of my favorite was the mental college got Mass Domination, which when you cast it, every NPC on screen and within a certain range, even off screen, had to save versus magic. And if they failed, they all became your allies for a period of time and fought for you. And when it wore off, they had no memory. So if they weren't hostile to you before, they're not hostile to you now. That was a pretty cool spell. Each one of these spells cost a point, but also had a quest associated with it, which was really a quest to recover that spell. You had to go find, tablets or, a dead person that you could speak with dead with, and they would teach you this Age of Legends spell. Also, I was making it so that any spell, you could spend another point in it, and it would make it better in a predefined way. It would either do more damage or the effect of it would last longer, or it'd have a bigger area of effect. It was dependent on the spell, but that meant you could, if you had a spell you liked, like Fireball, you could make a better Fireball and then an even better Fireball. But spells had to be improved in order. So if you had a third level spell, you had to at least put an extra point in spells 1 and 2 before you could improve spell 3. This created a ton. This was over 100 new points to spend just on spells. I did a very similar thing with tech schematics. I added a level 8 schematic called your postdoctorate. And those were things like, in chemistry, it was creating napalm, which was not just created an area with fire, but if they went through it, they stayed on fire after they came out of it. There was an electro cannon, which you could make from the electrical college, which would make ranged weapons into powerful electrical ranged weapons. Shrapnel mines, adamantine plate. These were all examples of things. Again, they cost a character point to buy and had a quest associated with them. And like spells, I put in that you could improve earlier schematics. So you could make a Molotov cocktail that did more damage, or maybe you made more of something for the same amount of ingredients. So that was pretty cool. And again, you had to improve earlier schematics to improve a later one. That alone added over 70 new skill points to spend. So those were all the things you got that I added toward the end of the game. One thing I did, which was still backwards compatible with characters, was I divided all the backgrounds in the game into 3 groups: genetic, childhood, and adult. Genetic backgrounds were things you're born with. Childhood backgrounds are things that happened to you when you were a small child, pre-teen years. And adulthood was anything that happened in your teen or early adulthood. So an example would be that is if you were the offspring of a troll, that's a genetic background. If you were raised by monks, that's a childhood background. If you had military training, that would be an adult background. The difference between the base game is I let the player optionally choose one background from each category. So if you wanted to, you could be born under a sign, then raised by monks, and finally you sold your soul. And you get all of those benefits. So previous characters were still valid under this new system, but if you made a new character, you could pick up 2, 3 backgrounds. After that, there's a bunch of different things that I wanted to do, mainly with followers. Change a lot of things that you could do with them through dialogue. Combat formations, which we eventually did add to Temple of Elemental Evil. And I wanted to put different modes you could put them in, saying do an attack without ever doing a heal, or I don't want you ever attack, just heal yourself and other people in the group. So you could basically adjust it so you could get party members that behaved a little more like what you wanted them to. Of course, none of this was ever done, but I thought people would like seeing the intention I had for Arcanum 2, and also, if you're working on your own game, this is how I would redesign a system if your intention is to let you bring over a character who'd already leveled up in the first game. If you want them to keep a character in the second game, this is how you put extensions onto the very highest parts of all of your character features. So I thought that would be interesting, and I hope people found that useful, or at least of some mild interest.